What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, checking out the new Magic Keyboard, which is launching alongside the new Magic Mouse 2 and the new Trackpad 2, which I'll cover in separate videos. But of course, this comes included with all the new 2015 iMacs as well, but you can also purchase this separately for $99. Now this is the first complete redesign of the wireless keyboard since the 2007 model, which we've had for a long time here. And of course, like a lot of new Apple products, it's thinner and lighter than the previous generation. So getting to the unboxing, first thing we need to do here is peel off all the plastic. Once we do that, we can slide off the sleeve and inside we'll find our new keyboard. The first thing that jumps out right away are these larger keys, which fill up the very compact design of the new keyboard. Lifting that up, the next thing we'll find is just how much lighter and thinner the new keyboard is. It's wrapped in this sort of frosted plastic, and we can peel that off to reveal the keyboard. Now this is substantially lighter than the previous generation. We go from 11.5 ounces to 8.2 ounces, which makes this a great portable solution for iPad users. Now it's still a Bluetooth keyboard and it's compatible with OS 10.11 or newer. Now before we take a close look, let's get to the accessories, and the first thing that jumps out right away is a lightning cable, and that's because this has an internal rechargeable lithium-ion battery, so we no longer need to remove the batteries and recharge them or replace them. So you can basically just connect this to a USB port on your computer to recharge it, which I think is very handy. Of course, we also get some paperwork with a quick start guide and some regulatory and warranty information. Taking a close look at the design of the Magic Keyboard, very familiar for Apple, we have these white keys along with this metal frame. The keys themselves are wider and shallower than before and use a new scissor mechanism, which Apple says is 33% more stable than the previous generation. We also get a much lighter font with some new iconography, which generally looks a little bit brighter and more contemporary than the previous generation, but also makes it a little less visible in the dark. Unfortunately, it is not backlit, which would be nice in this scenario, especially since it's now really easy to recharge it. Speaking of recharging, if you look along the back edge, you'll find your lightning connector for recharging the internal battery. It takes about 2 hours to fully charge it, but just a few minutes of charging will give you a few hours of use, and of course you can charge this and use it at the same time. We also have a power switch in the upper right. There is no LED indicator telling us when it's on or off, but of course we have this bright indicator on the switch itself. Along the left edge, you'll find this white trim piece, and that's part of the Bluetooth antenna system. So it needs some transparency in order for the antenna to work through the metal chassis of the keyboard, so they give you this little window. This is very similar to the design of the previous keyboard. The back of the keyboard is very simple here. We have this glossy plastic with the Apple logo toward the center, and at each corner, we'll find these rubber feet for gripping your table. The pairing process is very simple here. Of course, we can do the standard Bluetooth pairing. All we have to do is turn on our keyboard, go to our settings, find our Bluetooth controller, and find our keyboard, which we can click on and pair to easily. But you can also quickly pair your keyboard using a lightning connector connected to your Mac. So as soon as you plug your keyboard into your Mac using that lightning connector, it pairs and you're good to go. And you can go ahead and disconnect the cable. So it's almost instantaneous. Now, compared to the previous generation, the first thing that jumps out right away is just, again, how much wider the keys, how much lighter the font is, and how much thicker the top row is. So without the bulky battery compartment from the previous generation, you can see they gave us a lot more room for those keys along the top. So the keyboard is so much more compact than the previous generation. You can actually tuck it underneath the wedge of the previous keyboard. We can also see some other changes here. So for example, our left and right keys are larger than the previous generation. A lot of people don't like this, but of course it does look a little more uniform. We also get a backlit caps lock key. Now this only works if the keyboard is paired to a computer, so it won't unintentionally activate if you're traveling around with this keyboard and it's still on. Now we have the same function keys along the top, they've just been redesigned and spaced out differently here. So we now have a larger escape key, but we still have our screen brightness controls in addition to mission control and the launcher key. We also have our media controls, so back, forward, play, pause, etc. And then we have our volume keys for mute, volume up, and volume down. And far toward the right, we still get an eject button. Now the keyboard is the same width as the previous generation. It's just not as tall because we don't have the battery compartment, and of course it's much thinner and lighter. The keys are actually bigger, so in many ways the keyboard feels more spacious than the previous generation. There's more surface area for the keys and less blank space between them. So when you strike the keys, you get a more satisfying feel than the previous generation. Again, they say that these keys are 33% more stable than the previous generation, which means the keys don't sort of wobble around. Instead, you get this more satisfying click. Now, the key mechanism is different than the one used in the MacBook. That uses a butterfly mechanism and a dome switch. This still uses a scissor mechanism, but it's lower profile and a bit more stable. So the technology is different and it does feel different, but the overall effect is somewhat similar. We have a more solid, more consistent feel across the entire keyboard. The keys are also slightly cupped here, so they contour to your fingers, which feels a little more natural and more similar to the previous keyboard than the new MacBook keyboard. And I really like how fast this keyboard is. There's less mechanical action because there's less travel in the keys, so I can really fly across this keyboard, especially since I really type fast. And generally speaking, I just like how much more solid this keyboard feels. The keys are much more stable, they click into place more easily, and I just like the sound better than the previous keyboard. And I'm also glad that the keyboard finally has an internal battery, which is rechargeable thanks to a lightning connector, which is very convenient since I think most people have a lightning connector already connected to their iMac. That means I don't have to keep a set of batteries around. I always have a lightning cable to recharge my iPhone, which I can then use to recharge my keyboard. But of course, I shouldn't have to do that too often because a charge should last a month or better. Now, personally, I prefer a backlit keyboard, so I'm disappointed that they chose not to add it, especially since it's much easier now to recharge the internal battery of the keyboard. So I've been using a Logitech K811, which I reviewed many years ago. I really like it because, again, it's a nice compact Bluetooth keyboard that has this backlighting, which I find very useful. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for me in this video. If you want to check out my other videos on the Magic products, I'll leave them linked in the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up to let me know, and I'll see you again in the next one.